All right, so hello everyone. We are at the top of the hour right now, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Tiffany Gill. It's nice to meet you all online. So we are going to be talking about how to navigate the 2023 ASCP 40 under 40 application process. So joining me are two of my wonderful top 5 honorees of last year. And we're going to talk with you about our experiences, answer your questions that you may have. Feel free to put them in the chat, and we will do our best to afford time for all of them and answer all of them the best that we can. So as I said, my name is Tiffany Gill. I'm a tenured professor at the College of Southern Maryland, and you may know me as the internet personality, Medical Lab Lady Gill. I do a lot with medical laboratory educational programs and program directors, and trying to bridge any kind of gap between practicing professionals and educational programs and their students. So that is why I am here. And if I want to pass it over to one of my other co-stars, which of you ladies would like to introduce yourself first?
I can go. Hi, I'm Alison Krywanczyk. I'm a forensic pathologist and cardiovascular pathologist and a deputy medical examiner at the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's Office in Cleveland, Ohio. And that's sort of my experience in a nutshell. Why I got involved in the 40 under 40 application process is there's just not a lot of people who are dual trained in cardiovascular and forensic pathology. And I think that increasing that crossover and increasing our communication skills with our clinical colleagues is really important in ensuring quality autopsies in the future.
Thank you.
All right, and I'll introduce myself. I am Letycia Nunez-Argote. I am assistant professor in the University of Kansas Medical Center in Kansas City, Kansas. I am a certified medical laboratory scientist, and I am currently an educator, and my focus of my research through my doctoral degree was and continues to be the laboratory workforce, particularly studying the well-being of the laboratory workforce in general. Anyone who works in the laboratory has been undergoing a lot of stress, which can lead to and also I am studying pain, so chronic pain and the development of chronic disease and musculoskeletal pain in laboratory professionals. And a lot of my focus is also being in rural areas. I am in Kansas, and we have a lot of workers that are not necessarily certified or have not, have different routes to the laboratory that we don't hear about because they are not necessarily connected to professional societies. And so I'm looking into those people who are in that category as well. And a lot of them are found in rural areas. So that's one of the things that I've been looking at recently. And I'm just excited to be a part of this group at this wonderful moment, and looking forward to your questions.
All right, thank you both so much. So we are going to go ahead and start going over any questions. Oh, okay, that wasn't a question. All right, I'm trying to look at both the the chat and our background here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So we have some different accounts of how all of us became 40 under 40, and there have been an array of, I don't know exactly what you would say, but my experience, I think, would be a little bit different than what you all experienced. So I guess my first question to my co-honorees would be, was this your first time trying to get the award, or was this a process that you went through?
I can tell you, this was the first time that I have tried, but I will say I had a wonderful mentor and colleague who had actually two colleagues that had been already honorees in the past. And so I was able to use their experience as a resource. And that is one of the reasons why I was motivated to participate in this session, because I thought that that human resource, that human component that I was so fortunate to have in my at my disposal, my colleagues, and having the ability to chat with them and get their experience and get a feel for it, gave me it motivated me to pursue this, and also kind of gave me some pointers as to how to be more successful. So that's another reason why I'm here, but that's really part of that motivation.
Yeah, I'll say it for me also, it was my first time applying, and I don't think I was nearly as well prepared. I watched this video from last year, a few days ago when we were preparing for this, and I thought, man, I really should have watched this last year. So, I think if you have a thought about what you're about or something novel that you can bring to the table, the application kind of asks you questions that I think people really, these answers about yourself. But having this guidance is definitely helpful.
Well, I'm different than all of you. This was my third try. So I wanted to talk about that because, I'm widely represented on the internet, and I still, did not get the honor in the first 2 years that I tried. So I wanted to talk about that because I do not shy away from not doing amazing the first time. So I wanted to talk about a little bit about perseverance, and also what can you do to improve your chances of hopefully getting the honor. So what I noticed was, and I was there for last year's town hall as well. So everyone who is attending, please do not be discouraged. It is not always that you get it the first time. I'm living proof of that. So what did I do? What did I change? Well, what I changed was my CV. Since I'm an educator, I have a CV instead of a resume. So if you are more on the side where you are at the bench or in an institution where it's not academia, then you would have a resume unless it's research. So research and academia usually use CVs. So I have a CV, and what I ended up doing was revising it so that I had a section that had all this extra stuff that I was doing instead of leaving that out. So that was the problem that I was facing. I did not have on my CV a section that accurately represented all of the stuff that I was saying in my application. So please, please, please make sure that you have this section and this wonderful representation that matches between your application narratives and what you're representing on your resume or your CV. So the section that I added was very long. And it included volunteer opportunities that I was leading, and other things that I was doing, specifically in ASCP as well. So if you are volunteering with ASCP committees, or starting a new project, as my fellow honoree was saying, then absolutely put those in there. You want to choose information that will set you apart and really define who you are as a medical laboratorian, and how you are committed to the field, and trying to help improve in ways that you think should be improvements within the field. So everybody has their own perspective. Everybody is unique, and we all have a purpose that is unique from everybody else's. So please accurately represent yourself, because then maybe you won't have to wait 3 times to actually get the honor. And it is a great, great honor. So that leads us into the next question that I have for you all. How has the honor positively impacted your career, or really anything that is related to the field at this point for you? leaving it up for either of you two to answer.
Yeah, I can answer that, I think. I mean, the first sort of response that I had to this was disbelief, because I just thought, you know, I'm in a weird niche of pathology, which is already kind of a niche anyway in and of itself. So really the first big thing was for me, like an internal mindset shift of okay, what I'm doing is legitimate, and other people see it as legitimate. They've read it on paper, and they don't think, you know, they don't think I'm way out there or off base. And I think having that affirmation for me, it changed the way that I approached myself, and it made me a lot more confident in sort of sharing my viewpoint with other people. And it also gave me some legitimacy too when I'm trying to sell certain things that I want our department to look at doing, or certain initiatives I want to pursue, that, you know, this isn't just, you know, me and my weird hobby. This is, you know, a worthwhile endeavor, and it's worth putting time and money into, which otherwise I think can be really hard to convince people of. The other things that this has encouraged me to do, I've been able to branch out a little bit more online. I still don't really have a big social media presence, but this helped me spur me to actually, you know, create a Twitter account and get a little bit more engaged in that side of the world, which has really been an interesting thing, a nice way to meet people and network. And then also, you know, having the chance to write blog articles and participate in podcasts, again, just feels like your sphere of influence kind of opens up.
I'd like to echo that. Yes. So impact wise, my biggest thing, and I know there are a lot of people, and I've had a lot of conversations about having imposter syndrome. That's a very real thing. And so when you're trying to put yourself out there and try to highlight the wonderful things you're doing, you really have to believe in yourself. And I'm already someone who has that mentality. And I think it just comes from when I grew up, where I grew up, how my family and my environment, I've always known that I'm all that. And so this to me was just an additional confirmation of that. But I know that all of the things that I've been doing up till this point added to, this is kind of like a nice checkpoint, a nice, yes, I should continue doing this great work because it is being acknowledged. And so it's always nice to always look for this kinds of moments in life. I mean, we're all, you know, young professionals. Look for these opportunities within your organization, and then with some professional organizations, and even in your community, because you already have a lot of knowledge and valuable things you bring. And so to me, that this definitely a great honor, and definitely that one of those checkpoints in my career when I think all of the things that I've built up since I graduated almost 20 years ago. I mean, it's going to be 20 years pretty soon. It's been worth something. So what am I going to do with the next 20 years, right? Like, that's kind of like that. Okay, let's draw the next ones out and see how it pans out. So it's really brought a lot of positive feelings. And also, you know, selfishly too, I do want to expand on my research, and I'm looking for additional funding. I know there's quite a lot of resources out there that laboratory professionals specifically we don't partake in. Most of the other healthcare professionals that are larger groups usually get the funding for research. And so I want for our laboratory community to get that visibility so that we can do that. So that's the impact that it's had for me. And I'm hoping that it will continue to bear fruit.
Thank you all. Those are really great pieces of information and great pieces of validation. So same with me, trying to have that validation of, you know, when you're running a medical laboratory technology program or medical laboratory science program, especially for me, I'm kind of isolated out in the southern part of Maryland because I'm the only laboratory program at all in like 3 to 4 counties. So having the validation to also bring awareness to the community, because the laboratory has been underrepresented in the community. And I feel very passionate about patients understanding all the members of the healthcare team in order to best advocate for themselves within their care, because that's a safety issue as well as a, let's understand what's going on with you issue. So I've seen family members who have suffered from the lack of awareness of what the healthcare team does and how we work together. And I'm trying, I would like to strive to better improve the work that we do together as a team. So one of the goals that I have is to improve that teamwork, starting in the educational setting, because, we mimic what we learn. So all of the opportunities that we have to improve our empowerment and awareness of each other is a really great opportunity. So bringing validation and also improving awareness and visibility to the profession is really, really important to me. But it also brings visibility to your institution to improve, as Letycia was saying, improve money, but that could be enrollment in your program, that could be partnerships with clinical affiliates. There are so many opportunities that are out there. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much. So what do you think applicants should put on their applications or CVs, including leadership experience and work outside the lab? What do you think set you all apart, and how should they look at that scope of practice or their scope of influence within their institution?
I guess I would say, similar to what you had mentioned earlier, that make sure that your CV is reflecting the things that you say that you're doing, or your goals or aspirations, and don't feel like something has to have a label or a project title to put it on there. If you were working on some kind of quality assurance project, even if there's not a publication style thing you could list out, you can still write down what that work is. And I think, it's important to have those kind of thinking about when you're formatting your CV. What am I trying to show? And you're trying to show that you're working on the things that you care about, and thinking how that's going to tie into your essays, and making those support each other is important.
I agree with that. I think that in terms of the application itself, the other thing that you want to be very mindful of, and I was very, as I was building up toward submitting my application, and that took a couple of years, like there was a year that was like, oh, maybe I should submit it. And I was like, wait, let me think about it. So I actually did think about it before. And it was making sure that the effort you're making for the profession is something that you're really passionate about. So I'm very passionate about recruiting into the profession. So I spend a lot of time out in high schools and in middle schools and talking about, and I, describe what I talk about and why it's important. So make sure you do write out those experiences. And, if you go to career fairs, if you go to any of these events that help promote the profession, that, you're in a committee in your hospital or your organization that helps give visibility to the lab for your healthcare colleagues, that's another thing that you want to think about. And if you feel like you're not doing any of those things, you probably are. It's just a matter of really thinking about what the impact is in the community. Because even, writing stuff online, submitting articles to newsletters, those kinds of efforts, those are things that are things you can do self-motivated and be doing by yourself, but that are very valuable in general. So any of those things that you're doing can count, participating, like Tiffany said, volunteering in ASCP and stuff like that is very important.
So that conversation actually is a really good springboard, but we do have a question in the chat. So we're going to jump on over to the chat first, and then we're going to springboard back over to where we were. So we have a question from Kazim, and the question is, does having a large following or a growing channel on social media count? So that's a very good question. I think I can answer that. No. Because I did have a large following on YouTube, and that did not help me, at least for the first 2 times. The third time it did. So it really kind of is, how do you represent that on your CV and in your application narratives that you're writing? So we can't stress enough, and I can't stress enough, make sure that CV has those kinds of things on there. So Kazim, if you're trying to have a social media presence with a purpose, absolutely put that on there. So are you trying to achieve something through that project, or is this something that you're doing to prepare for people to see you in case you are an honoree, or, you know, to provide that voting type of scenario that everybody wants? That's my dog, I'm sorry, in the background. So the other part of that question, or the other part of the answer, is that I wasn't really on Twitter until I was preparing for people to actually see my face. So on YouTube, it's just these, you know, I'm using my hands. You don't really see me because the objective is for the viewer to focus on the procedure and the information and not the person giving it. So I did that purposefully. But then I realized that's a problem when you're trying to gain support for the voting period and that sort of thing. So I wanted to have a presence where people understood who I was. And so that might have helped, but I don't know. It's hard to say. So I hope we answered your question in a way that makes sense. Allison or Letty, do you have any other information to add to that?
I would say I very much echo. I don't have very huge followings on social media, but what I have tried to do is curated following. And so that may be something that you want to think about. I follow, my accounts are very professional, except the Instagram one is the fun one, but everything else is very much a professional account where I follow professional organizations, colleagues, and influencers from the laboratory world. And so that actually, I think, may have helped, because the people who are going to be interested in this event in somebody's life are going to be those who are your colleagues and your peers. That's who is recognizing you, and everyone else is. But I think that there may be something else that you want to think about and get to know those people. And that the way I've gotten to know a lot of wonderful people in the laboratories through those social media. And don't discount Facebook, because we do have a large number of later in age demographic people that are only Facebook people. And if you don't remember them, you're going to miss out on a large group of supporters. So just think about that as well.
So we had a response to our response to the question. So this is great. I'm enjoying this. So the goal is to show to show pathology to people who don't know about pathology at this point. I personally think that's a really great reason to have a social media account. The way that you go about it is absolutely very important. So as Letty was just saying, having professional social media is different than personal social media. So I have all professional social media accounts as well. And trying to make sure that your accounts are unified, I guess is the best word, where you're representing yourself the same way in each one is a good thing to do. So maybe even if you want to use the same profile picture, so you can have people identify you visually as they're going through the different accounts. So I try to use the same name, Medical Lab Lady Gill, on each of them, but Twitter doesn't allow the whole Gill part. So it's Medical Lab Lady G. Just got on Facebook. Professional wise, I was already there in the program director page, but it was unfortunately under my personal one, and I'm trying to move that over to everything professional. So if you are trying to create a social media professional identity, having the same type of profile picture or logos and banners and stuff, and same kind of verbiage would be a really great point, in my opinion, and practice to do. So thank you for continuing to engage with us in the chat. If anybody else would like to ask any questions or comments or have any concerns, absolutely put them in there. We are not shy. Woo, we got another one. All right. Is the award geared more towards education and practice quality improvement than basic and translational research? That's a really good question. I don't think that it is. Honestly, there have been a really great variety of applicants and awardees throughout the years, and this hasn't been an award that's actually been out for a very long time. So there are, I would say, hundreds, if not thousands of people that are applying each time, and they can be from all over the world. So it really is a process. So there is a committee of laboratory professionals, physicians, and this is a wide range of people, so that everybody is well represented, and they work together to identify the individuals that they think would best represent what it means to be an honoree. So as long as the project or the passion that you're gearing your application around, or what you're focusing it on, if it's relating to ASCP's mission, vision, and goals, I would presume that that would be a good way to go. So in education, we always tie everything to outcomes, and you have to be able to thread outcomes with what you're doing, what you're practicing, as well as with the strategic plan and mission, vision, and goals of whatever entity you're representing. So if you can do that with the work that you're doing, I think that is wonderful. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to keep looking in the chat because there's a lot coming in. So if you all want to add anything while I read.
I mean, I think what you said is a great answer. And it reminded me of, you know, mentoring people who are interested in applying to medical school. And a lot of times I think there's this pressure to feel like, oh, I need to have like 30 different extracurriculars, or, you know, what areas do I need to have covered? And I always would tell them it's not as important to have a huge breadth of stuff for the sake of having stuff, but be involved in things that you care about and be able to talk about them in a way that shows that you care about them and that you're putting work into it. And that says so much more than, you know, having something, or, you know, 10 somethings on your CV that you kind of did because you felt like you had to. So exactly that is whatever you're doing, if it fits with the ASCP's vision and goals, and you care about it and you can talk about it in a way that makes other people care about it, then I think those are the most important things to think about ahead of time.
I agree with all of the above. I definitely, especially like I know you were mentioning like basic or translational research, that can be a little hard sometimes to kind of connect the dots, but don't worry. If anything, I would think that showcasing somebody who has that background and is in the laboratory profession is extremely important. And I would definitely highlight how that work impacts our patients and makes our healthcare better, or the way that we serve others. So as long as, you know, like Tiffany and Alison said, make sure you align with the objectives of the application, but also remember that everything you're doing, whether it's basic research or, you know, working on the bench or doing education, it's all because we want to make sure that our patients will be safe and well. So that's something that every one of us, I think, can agree on.
All right, well said, everyone. Another question is, should you put the person who nominated you as a reference, or should you put someone else? So I have some fun answers with that one too. My application process has been crazy, but crazy fun, crazy good, I guess. So that is up to you. As Letty was pointing out earlier, that she had mentors that were previous honorees as well. That's a really good thing to do. Write us down, get to know us. We might help you out. But if you are getting involved with ASCP and committees, number one, not all committees have a long-term commitment to them. So if you're just, you know, trying to feel things out, you can select ones that don't have such a long commitment time frame. You can also be on work groups that are doing stuff that you feel is very important. And if you meet people through those opportunities, that would be a great choice of group of people that you could put on there. But whomever you choose, it should be someone who really can speak to what you're doing and knows you. Because if you put a name and you don't know that person and they really have no idea what you've been doing and can't support your narrative that you're providing, that's not a good person to use. And that leads us into another question. Can you self-nominate? You absolutely can. And whether someone nominates you or not, you always have to apply. So if you got nominated and you didn't apply, you aren't even in the running. So you have to apply. So that may be considered a self-nomination. It might not be if you already had somebody nominate you, but either way, make sure you fill out that application. I had anonymous people nominate me, so I didn't know if I was putting them as my my reference or not. So that's why it was an interesting question for me, because, you know, just make sure that person can speak for you. Anybody want to add to that?
Not really. I self-nominated. Again, this was something that I had been thinking about. So when I felt ready, I went for it.
Alison? Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. The most important thing is that you find somebody who knows you and can support the narrative that you're presenting. You know, it's the same as asking for a letter of recommendation. You want somebody who's going to be able to give specifics and specific examples, and not someone that you kind of knew peripherally and worked with for 1 month. You know, even if they're a big name necessarily, you know, I'd rather speak to somebody or have somebody who's able to say a lot about you and your journey. And I think that's a lot more valuable.
Very, very nice. Thank you. So the next question is, are honorees selected solely from CVs and narratives, or is there an in-person or virtual interview process?
I guess we can go into that. Kind of goes with our application thing that we were going to talk about, right, Tiffany? Because I was just your application. So you got to make sure you do a really good job there, as we've been discussing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There is no virtual interview process that I'm aware of. in any of the past years, and I'm not aware of them making that as a change. So to answer your question, no, not currently. There are lists of the past honorees, and you can Google them and find them on the ASCP website. Obviously, Google will pull them up, but you want to be specific with the years. And I'm getting a response correct. There is no virtual interview process. Thank you. So that's official from ASCP, just to let you all know. The list of honorees. So when I applied the first time out of my 3 wonderful applications, I looked up the process. I looked up the previous winners. I looked at them online in the videos that they had to do in order to create an online presence and do a voting campaign. So I was already researching, how does this process go with what was available to the public? At that point, I was kind of thinking, all right, how does the video representation work? One thing that I wanted to point out with the videos are, when you are creating your video, if you happen to get into the 40 and you're trying to get into the top 5, make sure that when you're making that video, you're gearing it to somebody that has no idea what you looked at in preparation for the video. So if you start the video out and you're answering a question that you didn't even say or verbalize, it's weird. You know, you want to make sure that anyone who's listening to you understands from the very first second that you're speaking what it is that you're gearing your conversation to, and you're representing to your audience, what you want them to know before you answer the question. And most of that is more about, you know, what are you passionate about? Why should somebody support your passion and vision for the honor and what you would do with it? So that's what I noticed about the previous videos, were that I didn't understand what they were talking about because they were answering a question that they didn't verbalize. So make sure that you do that. So far, no more questions in the chat. Was there anything you all wanted to add?
I agree with the videos. That was when I did go and watch the other videos too before making my own, because I feel like it's almost harder to make something so short that encapsulates like what you're about and in such a nutshell that's also interesting enough for people to stay tuned into. So yeah, I mean, I looked at it kind of like, you know, it's the elevator pitch version of why should I give you any attention or any time? And, you know, it's aimed at, you know, pathology colleagues, but it's not just lab scientists, pathologists who can vote in this, it's anyone. So, you know, if you work in maybe a very specialized area, I would say, you know, keeping the language more understandable, or keeping things a little bit more inclusive to help, you know, your family members who might be sent a link and they might not understand what you're talking about. So.
I agree with all that. And just so you all know, it can be intimidating, like, you know, making such a short narrative of yourself, but thankfully there are a lot of tools at our disposal nowadays. So, you know, I've practiced doing some of the Instagram things before with just my social media presence. And that has helped me get more comfortable with the camera. And so that practice, I believe, has helped me in being more interactive when I'm making some of that content. So if you haven't done that in the past at all, you can start getting yourself a little bit more comfortable by maybe making an account, and then just sharing it with your friends or just a small group of people. You don't have to put it all out there in the public, but just make yourself practice a little and see where your strengths are and how you can improve, because that will help you then when the time comes, obviously.
So I liked what you were saying, Alison, about how this is, when you get to the voting process, and you make that video and you're putting it out there, it is geared towards everyone, including your friends and family. Honestly, they're going to be the ones who vote the most for you, most likely. So make sure that you let everybody know that they can vote more than once a day. I had colleagues who were so wonderful, and they were setting a timer for every 8 hours so they could vote for me again. I really was not aware that I was going to get that support, but it was wonderful. And so if you ask, you know, what has this award done for you too, it's shown me more support than I thought I had as well. So they might just come out of the woodwork for you, and it's wonderful. So we have a lot of great talking points, and we don't have any more questions in the chat so far. So can we talk a little bit more about that voting period? Does anybody want to cover that, or do you want me to just keep going into it?
I can talk a little bit more about
Okay,
that. That's okay. But thanks for, great segue, and thanks for introducing that. So I definitely agree that at the moment, especially for the top 5, you do want to make sure that everyone that like even from, from school, from all of your different workplaces that you've been at, that everyone is aware, and definitely family members are biggest advocates. As far as for myself, I know that for sure, but colleagues and I have the advantage, I guess I have students, so my learners were also involved, and they're all social media savvy, so it was great. I will say also, just being, putting yourself out there and believing that you are all those things that you wrote about in your application. You're writing about yourself, and you know that you're doing wonderful things, but sometimes a lot of people are too shy about talking up what their accomplishments are. And so there's nothing wrong with, if it's true, there's nothing wrong with you saying all the wonderful things you're doing. And so also, keep it fun and approachable, because, I have all sorts of serious, high level theoretical things that I could talk about, but for the most part, what's the bottom line, and what am I really trying to impact? And then that's what you go for, because you don't have a lot of time. So that's the other thing I would definitely suggest, that you advocate for yourself, keep it fun, and keep it approachable. Definitely.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that one of the big challenges, at least for me professionally, and I think I see a lot of my colleagues struggle with it too, is learning how to advocate for ourselves and how to put ourselves out there and express pride in our own accomplishments. And so I think if nothing else, this process is a great learning and growth experience for that, because you are all doing amazing things. We're all working on things that we're passionate about, and there's no downside to sharing that with people. There's no, the worst thing is that maybe somebody forgets to vote for you, or doesn't. There's really, there's nobody out here who's, not deserving of votes. So I think getting your message out there, sharing it with more people, and then more people see you and get to see what you're about. And if they're interested, if they have the same interests, they may contact you. So it's really, again, about like opening yourself up and broadening your professional network in the context of getting votes, but it doesn't hurt anyway.
I agree. And with that, you reminded me of something. Sorry. Interrupt me if I need to. I'm talking too much. One thing that really helped me, and this may be something that helps you all too, is when the initial 40 under 40 list came out, and then the voting was about to start, I contacted my previous workplaces, the institutional media office in my current workplace, and the program where I graduated from. And I sent them information from that was shared with me from ASCP about the award, and they put that information in their websites and their media outlets. And so that is also something that it may take a little extra effort as far as like figuring out who the media person is in your organization, who to contact, who the PR person is, and making sure that they put that, you know, you made it into the 40 under 40, that you put out there something, a broadcast, put it on the newsletter during that process and invite people to vote. And then another thing, make sure that, you know, that people are aware that you're doing this, because then they'll be on the lookout for it too. Because if the people don't know that you're doing it, you know, and it, you know, it feels like, oh, I want to keep it secret. If I'm not selected, then that's okay. A lot of people get shy about that. I was like, no, I was all out. If I don't get it, I don't get it, but I'm going to try anyway. And so people were looking for it. So when I actually I found out, you know, kind of like, and it was like, oh, and then this huge avalanche of emails came from all these people that, oh, you had applied and now you got it. So make sure that you do let people know that you're doing this so that they'll look at it and they'll support you.
Absolutely. Do it as soon as possible. You might want to do it now because the the honorees are announced early June, and you get a few weeks in order to make that video and get those votes. It's very fast. Okay, so you want to start researching how to do those videos now, so that if you do get into the 40, that you are ready to go. So practice. Get this guy out, start filming, you know, start practicing going out and just talking about the weather or whatever. Another thing is if you're doing your video, don't read it. When you read it, it does not seem passionate. It does not seem natural. My video, I did write down what I was going to say, and then I was just saying it and practicing it. I wasn't reading it as I was doing it, so I had it memorized, and I was just go, 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 go. And you want to also think about where you are when you're taking that video. So I chose to be in my classroom lab, and so I had it in my background. You can make a background and make it on Zoom if you'd like, just like we're doing now. But anything that you're doing, always just make sure that it's accurately representing your passion. Same thing with your picture. So you're asked to provide a picture of your bust, you know, so and then a full length picture. So I submitted my headshot. They never used it. They used the full body one and they cropped it. So you can submit ones that you like, but make sure that they're professionally done and that they're able to easily take them out of any background that you have, because they're going to post you all together just like they did with us. So we have this beautiful banner of all of us together, and you have to have a white background with that being the case. So start getting your pictures taken now. Because if you go to try to book a professional photographer, sometimes it's months before you can get into their schedule. And then you might not even get the pictures back right away, because then they're going to edit them. Allison's like cracking up. Was this a problem with you that you had? It was such a fast turnaround time. It was hard.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And then knowing that I needed a full length photograph, I was, what is happening? So it really, you know, thankfully the institution I was at, we had photographers on staff. So that was life-saving, but I was not expecting that. So thank you for bringing it up.
I agree, but I always keep up. I kind of have a 5-year kind of updating my professional pictures. I'm that person, but I did still have to go get that full body one. So making sure that had a place. I had to drive far away to get it, but I got it really fast. So I agree. If you have the ability to go ahead and schedule that, and it's not a waste, you can use them for your professional profiles like LinkedIn and Twitter and all those other things. So, you know, it's not a bad idea to invest in that, invest in yourself. You know, I went and got a haircut the day of, so I could like, oh, got the nice hair and whatever. So, you know, make it into like a day and make yourself feel, it made me feel good, you know, having those nice pictures of myself too.
if you're not used to getting your picture taken or you don't know who to contact, I have an aunt who's a realtor. So I asked her, what photographers would you suggest? Because she had a full length one done. She looked amazing. And I said, I want that photographer. So, if you have realtor friends or you know someone who's had some professional shots taken, absolutely find out from them. But yes, all of these things, there's a fast turnaround time, and you just need to make sure that you're aware that these are coming your way. I spent a lot of money on the ones that I did because of just the policy of what the pictures cost for the photographer that I had. So and vary up the pictures too. So if you are going and getting them done, take a couple different outfits to decide, which one makes you look the best, because you might think something looks great, but on a picture it really doesn't. So you can switch it up a little bit. I had multiple different pairs of glasses with me and everything. So glasses on, glasses off, try all that. We're still not getting any talking about pictures, any conversation in the chat. We have 10 more minutes. So if you have any questions and need those answers, please get them in there so we can definitely meet your needs today. We pretty much covered everything. So last words of wisdom, update that CV to accurately represent you. Book a photographer now. Get your hair cut if that's what you need to do. And start practicing your videos, start becoming visible on social media so you already have your accounts ready. If you need to have that voting period done. I did not have a large following on Twitter. I really didn't have a large following on anywhere but YouTube. And you don't get to know how many votes you got. Does anybody want to talk about any of the committees they're on and the kind of work that they do?
So I've been involved with professional societies in general. For ASCP, I'm currently in the volunteer pool, and so I keep looking for smaller projects. I have participated in other professional societies, so that's another thing that I may want to emphasize as part of your CV. If you are more involved in your local efforts, so like in a hospital committee or your organization committee, that counts too. Make sure you emphasize that, because you may not have had the opportunity of time to participate with ASCP yet. And you should not be discouraged. I've had other opportunities to work with ASCP in other capacities, like I've collaborated with them in interviews and things like that. And that definitely, I highlighted that on my CV. And now I'm in the volunteer pool, like I mentioned, which is great. But just as far as participation, I really highlighted my passion and the committees that I'm involved with in diversity, equity, and inclusion is one of the biggest efforts that I have as part of my committee involvement in my institution and in professional societies. And so I also highlighted that as well. And so that's one of those things. Sometimes like the committee that you want to be in may not have a project. And so you just kind of have to wait, which is kind of what I've been doing. But there's definitely, the recruiting through the ASCP ambassadors, that's a program. And I already do a lot of that. So I could definitely align with that involvement with ASCP in my application. So just remember, don't be discouraged if you're not necessarily like in name currently in a committee through ASCP, but if you are doing similar work, there's no reason why you won't be able to do that as a volunteer with ASCP because you're already doing it. So if that's, we already have so many hours in the day. And so, maybe next time you rotate out of that committee, you can come volunteer with ASCP. So just make sure you highlight those experiences.
So we do have another question in the chat. Who reviews the applications? Is there an audience that you should gear your application to? No. There is no audience specifically that you should gear your application to. They're all medical laboratory professionals of varying levels within the lab and positions within the lab. We don't know who they are. They are not really announced. It's kind of like a secret committee, but they're representing all levels of medical laboratory professionals. So there isn't really an audience. Just make sure that you're actively answering the questions that are provided in the application. What's the most deciding factor in deciding who the recipients are? Is it votes, achievements, videos? So it's a combination of things, but I would say mostly it's the application with the CV or resume and the way that they represent you, because that's the deciding factor that moves you into the 40. And then the voting happens after that. So the videos really only generate votes, and it's after you've already been in the 40. So definitely focus all your efforts on doing a great narrative for your application and tying it to, again, the mission, vision, and goals of ASCP, and make sure that it's very clear who you are, what you represent, what your passions are, and what your future goals are too. So it doesn't even have to be everything you've already done. It can be things that you're in process of doing or something you're starting. And we're very glad that we're being encouraging to you. I'm so glad to hear it. Yeah, you can apply every single year. And if you don't get it that year, apply again. I became much more involved in ASCP. So I started the Cell Bowl, and I was already doing that in my program. I was reaching out to my other counterparts throughout the nation, program directors of different educational programs. And I asked them, hey, do you all want to do this too? Because there really aren't a lot of competitions for students. I think it would be fun. They were very receptive to it. And so I kind of just started it on a whim, and then it blew up really well. And so here we are, going to be season 3. But even though I had started it that one year, I applied and I didn't get it, even though, we started the Cell Bowl, but the Cell Bowl had already started. The Cell Bowl started after the applications were already done and reviewed. So I was very discouraged. I talked with a few people and I was like, I'm never going to do this again. And then I did do it secretly. It was under the radar because I didn't want to be embarrassed again. And then I got it. And then I just shouted it from the rooftops because it was wonderful and exciting. So, it was very emotional for me, but it doesn't have to be for you. Just realize that there are a lot of people applying. And even though you don't get it the one year, try again. I was very lucky because now I'm 40. So I got in right under the radar. All right. So we're 2 minutes till the end. Any other burning questions? Because I said thank you, and then all these started coming in. Oh, we got another. Oh, never mind. Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. All right. Any last words, ladies?
Go ahead and apply. Nothing bad can happen.
Just do it.
Yeah, just do it. It's a good exercise, even if you don't get it. And for me, I'm always like, oh, I don't know if I want to put myself out there. Like, what's the worst thing that happens is you don't get it this year. You apply next year. It's fine.
And save what you had. So I wrote mine in Word. So I took off, what the questions were. I put it in a Word document, and I kept revising it and revising it. Make sure you have the right word count, but save that narrative, and you can tweak it again if you didn't get it this year, and you can tweak it and use it the year after. That's all I did. I kept copying and pasting and adding a little bit more. But the CV section was, I think, the really big difference for me. Because that's a lot like having, trying to apply for a job. You know, everybody really wants to look at your resume or CV, they'll skim it. And then, you know, if nothing sticks out, I can't speak to who's actually reviewing them, but if nothing sticks out, maybe that means that your narrative isn't going to stick out to them either. Or you had something that stuck out on your resume or CV, and then you didn't even talk about it in your application. And then they're like, well, why wouldn't you talk about this? This is really great. So just really make sure those are coming together and accurately representing you. All right, we have 1 minute, last minute question. Up, I'm wrong. We're at the top of the hour now. So we want to thank you all for joining us so much. Thank you, co-honorees, for joining me as well. So happy to see you all again. Congratulations again. And we hope to be congratulating you all very, very shortly. So thank you for coming, and we hope that we answered all your questions.
Make sure you apply.
Mm-hmm.